You can see lots of color. They're a tie-dye pattern. Now they're not exactly the same print because they are tie-dye, but I don't think it's going to make a difference in the finished dress. Pulling the skirt off of the dress. What I'm going to do is I'm going to decide how wide I want that to be. The waistband or hip band with the elastic, I think maybe 2 inches would be good. And I want to leave a little turn under so I can put a little elastic at the top if I decide to do that. Depending on how it fits with just the elasticizing it has now, it may not need any extra elastic, but I won't know that until I have it on my body. So I'm going to cut it a little wider than I need it. But I want to make sure I don't cut it too wide because I still need to cover my boobs. But I have plenty of room here. So I'm going to go ahead and measure 2 inches from the bottom seam. That's this seam here. That's where the skirt is attached to the ruching. And then I'm going to give it another half inch. Okay, so 2.5 inches. We will mark it. Now I'm using white here because this is a tailor's chalk. I use it a lot. It makes a mark that disintegrates when you iron it. It disappears. It evaporates, actually, is the word I'm looking for. And in a perfect world, these stitches would be a guideline because they would be even, but as you can see, they're not. They wiggle waggle around, so that would have been just too easy. So I'm going to go along the whole front and back and just mark 2.5 inches. Randomly on that line here. Keep it nice and flat, 2.5. Now I do have a better ruler that I could have used by laying out this way, but I can't find it at the moment. That's the problem with see-through plastic rulers. They tend to blend into the mess that is my sewing room. All right, now if I had lined up the front and the back skirt very well, I should be able to just use a rotary cutter and just go whoosh. But I don't trust that the front and the back is in line. You could come in with a pin and line them up, but that seems like a lot of work. So I'm just going to take my scissors and cut across those marks. And I am going to take a snip. Let's see, I'm going to take a snip here where one of my marks is. Let's see, where's that mark? Here. And take a little snip just to get in there, making sure not to cut underneath. And I'm just going to go across, eyeballing it from one white mark to the other. It's not going to be precision, not going to be perfect, but I'm kind of an eyeball kind of sewer. I just eyeball it. I don't pin everything. I don't mark every little inch. And it works for me, but you can do things a little more precise if you like. Make sure you're not getting the underneath part. And you could put more marks to make the line exact. If that's your thing. That's just not mine. All right. So we're cutting all the way across. We're almost all the way through. And so we will turn it inside out. Now you can go through here with a seam picker and pick that all through, but since we have so much fabric, I'm just going to use the rotary cutter and just cut off that seam. Now be very careful with the rotary cutter. It's very sharp. You don't want to put your fingers in front of where you're cutting. You always want to be behind or to the side. And I've got my mat down. Let's move this dress out of the way. Got my mat down. we lay it out, try not to cut any extra fabric, and we're gonna just cut right at that seam, just taking a smidge of fabric out and save us about half an hour of picking out that seam with a seam ripper, which is very annoying. You make a mistake or you have to pull something apart and use a little seam ripper. Ugh. It's not really a seam ripper, it's a seam picker, because if you rip it, you usually make a mess of the fabric. So you have to pick, which I hate to do. But all seamstresses, all sewers have to do that eventually, because we all make mistakes. Fabrics don't lie the way we like. Tension was wrong. Our stitches are ugly. So we have to go back and make repairs, take things apart. Taking things apart is usually the part of making a costume that takes the most time, because you have to fix your mistakes as we all make them. All right, so that was so much easier. That is the back of my skirt. All right, let's see if I can get my skirt in view here. I'm gonna get a lovely view of my butt. So this will be the back side, and I probably will need to put elastic, because even though it was very ruched in the back of that skirt, or as that dress, it is a little wide. So I want it to end up here tightly, and it's very loose. So in the end, I'm probably going to end up adding a little elastic to the top to tighten it up so it fits really tight. And it's going to be a little long, so I'm going to have to hem it. But that's the back of my skirt. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the other dress. Cut it apart and cut that 2.5 inches at the top. And then we will have two pieces that we are going to seam together. Okay, I've taken my other dress apart, and now I have a front and a back skirt. So I am going to go take them into my sewing room and just seam them all the way down. So I'm just going to feed this in here. I'm not one for pinning, but I just kind of feed it as I go, match it up best I can. And you really don't need to see the whole process of sewing two skirts together.